Hi, I'm Susie Badaracco, President of Culinary Tides. We are a fractional Foresight and Trends Intelligence team for the food and beverage and neighboring industries. This presentation is a condensed version of the full session I delivered at the SCIP conference in 2025. In this shortened format, I'll walk you through the key insights and trend takeaways we uncovered so you can quickly get up to speed on the trends that matter the most. If you'd like access to the full deck, there will be a QR code at the end of the presentation where you can request a copy. Or if you want to learn more, feel free to reach out so we can keep the conversation going. And so let's begin with the Foresight triple threat, combining longevity charts, affinity scales, and fault fix trees to better predict the future. These are three analytics that we developed, and I'm going to take you through them one by one, how to apply them. So why would you ever use these three in combination? And by the way, they are all military. First of all, it predicts product success. Another reason you would want to use it is detect flaws. So you can correct the product before it even gets to consumers. When you would use it is if you're going through an innovation phase. So you're evaluating new concepts for flaws, correcting or dismissing concepts prior to consumer testing. So you might have 50 ideas, you need to get to 7. This is the example we would use. You may have a different situation where you actually have a product lineup, but you kind of want to pull it back, look at it again. Some of the items may not be performing as you think they should. So this is also used for what we call a current concept review. It's to evaluate and revise current underperforming products and tell you what's going on with them and how to fix the situation. We're going to use a very simple little case study of soups, a series of soups that we invented just for this purpose, and I will walk you through how this works. So first we're going to look at longevity charts. And physically, they lay out like this, very simple. So what it does is it maps out how long a trend is likely to last based on allies versus obstacles, but then also looking over 1 to 3 years time. 3 years is for us fairly easy and reliable to predict out on. So it's to support or show resistance in the marketplace, looking at technology, health, regulations, culture. So not just what products are out there now or what the trends say. So it helps businesses identify which trends are worth investing in and which may be likely to fade. So this is our little study. So on soups, I'm going to pull up the chart. We're going to focus on just one, this little cactus chili over here. You can see that the 6 quadrants are numbered. They get scores from 5 all the way up to 30. If you're a 30, that means you have lots of allies and you're going to last a long time. We call these little guys rock stars. If it's somewhere down in the 12 to 24, lots of obstacles, short-lived, then you probably have like an LTO, kind of a one-hit wonder situation. And you want to, it's not that you can't launch it, you just want to be aware if something falls in that quadrant that you want to put a time limit and watch it really carefully. Along with this, what we recommend is we do charts where we actually tell the client what the allies and obstacles are. In other words, very briefly, why did the item end up in the quadrant it ended up in? And so this is how that chart lays out for this project. Next, we're going to take the same items and we're going to put them through what we call affinity scales. Affinity scales look like this. And they're from the consumer's point of view. It's their comfort radar. So it's helping you see quickly how familiar or unfamiliar a trend is, ingredient, a preparation, a flavor. This could be a health driver. You can really use affinity scales for any number of things. So high affinity means it's very approachable through the consumer's eyes. It might be familiar, it's easy to understand, widely accepted. Maybe they can get this easily in grocery stores or restaurants. If it's low affinity, it gets a lower score. It does not mean it's bad. It just means it might be a little more unusual, niche, exotic, or disruptive. It also might be a newer kid on the block, right? So people are not as familiar. And you may not be able to get a hold of this item as easily, and that might be another reason why something might score low. So here is what it will look like for the soup. So the same soups, now we're going to put on affinity scales. And the first three wind up as kind of little rock stars. They all get 30 points, very approachable. These two, the Smoky Poblano, etc., they end up kind of in the middle of the chart. They're somewhat newer, they're regional, they're not as familiar. And then here comes our little cactus chili down here at this time in time. It scored low. I will say one thing about all three of these charts is with our chaos analytics, they are living, breathing charts, meaning you're seeing a moment in time here, but as time goes on, these items can move on any of these charts. So these are charts that are built to be in motion at all times. Now we've got the fault fix trees. And I got to give you a tiny bit of a history on this little guy. So fault fix trees actually originally came from military. It's called fault trees or failure trees. And so it's a detection, it's still used. It's a detection method used to identify the root cause of potential failures of a system. So how it works is you start with the top event, the accident, the incident, whatever it is, the item in our case, and then you break it down into a series of lower level events, gates, whatever could cause a product to fail. So military uses this for missile systems, aircrafts, weapon systems, right? Identifies any potential issues before these things become live systems. We've adapted it for the food industry. So what's the problem with the fault trees, like the original failure trees, fault trees? Well, the problem is they have no solution to fix the fault, right? So they can pull out the fault, they can't actually fix the fault. They just tell you, yep, you've got a problem, good luck. And then you have to, all the groups separate, you have to go back and figure out what the problem is. But what it does is it stops communication. At that point, it's just like, yep, you've got a problem. So what we did was we created fault fix trees instead. So instead of failure trees, fault trees, they're called fault fix. So this is what a master original fault tree branch looks like. So for instance, at the top, you've got the master product, whatever it is, potential supports. So for instance, this is just one of 13 that we use. This one's health drivers. So you ask the question of the product, does it coincide with health drivers that consumers are looking for? And in a normal fault tree, it would say, sure, yes, or no, right? And then you would explain, well, what are the drivers? Like, why does it say yes? And then it would get a score of points. So what we did was there is no way in a normal fault tree to then actually correct it. So we added the second branch, which is the fix, which is why we call them fault fix trees. So what we ask is like, well, if it's no, then you ask the question of the product, like, well, could it be realigned? And if it's yes, great. Well, what is the fix? It automatically loses half points because you had to put in a fix. So it's already weaker. And sometimes there's not a fix. And if it's no, it gets a 0 and it goes on its little merry way. And you can take it out of that list that you were thinking about. So that's just how we corrected the original diagrams. So now I'm going to show you what the masters look like. There's two parts to the masters. This is part one. And you can adapt this any way you want. For our purposes, what we take a product through or an idea through is we ask the questions, does it align with economic drivers, packaging drivers, health and wellness? There's 3 for consumers. There's generational drivers, psychological, and experiential drivers. So we have to ask the question. And of course, in the background, we have pages and pages and pages of research that are lists that we can ask of the product in the background, right? The client sees this, but in the background, we're actually testing it against all these different drivers. The second part is even more complicated. Then we take the same product and we say, well, does it operate in any channel drivers? So channel drivers would be, are you aiming specifically for convenience stores, fine dining, grocery stores? What's your channel? Dollar stores even. Then we ask, well, does it hit any technology drivers that are occurring? Sustainability drivers, industry themes, which is separate, so it's in pink. And then we've got 3 different flavor drivers: preps and formats, tone and voice of the product, and then actual food or beverage or cuisine drivers. So we ask the same question. They get a score along this whole route. So pulling it all together. This is our little SOUPS concept final score. So then what the client sees is they see a scoreboard, right? So we show them that data, right? But then it's easier for them to see this final scoreboard. So for this little soup example, this is how they scored. So at the time, little chicken enchilada soup, was the winner. So it got 30 longevity, a perfect affinity score, and a very, very high fault fix score as well once we took it through the 13 steps. Here's little cactus chili down here. And at the time, it scored the lowest, right? So it had a lower longevity. You saw that it didn't score very well on the affinity. And behind the scenes, the fault fix score was not bad, actually. It was like 85, but out of 100, which was not bad. So you can see what we score is 80% is a really strong product. You don't even have to think about it. Once it gets below 80%, then you've got some issues you probably want to address when you're looking at this. So that's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like a copy of the full version of the presentation, just scan the QR code on the screen and it'll take you to a quick request form. And if you have any questions or just want to chat more about what we covered, feel free to reach out using any of the contact information here. I would love to connect. Thanks so much.